CSP International Business Training Academy is the official name of the company. And I'm not an HEV star. I was a business executive, I guess. And I realized 5 years before I left the business world, that business world, I didn't like my job. And I started to talk to people, not consciously, but in comments that I was making about how I didn't like my job anymore, and I was going to be retired. I kind of was expecting a guy on a white horse with big bags of money to come charging through and rescue me from working in the corporate world, but that never happened. And I always said that I wasn't going to be working there when I was 50. And guess what happened? 2 days after I was 50, I wasn't working there. I created my own reality. And it was a shock for me, although it shouldn't have been. And after a little while of being home and thinking about what I was going to do, and I have a husband who is Dutch and an accountant, so we had one of those meetings about, are you going back to work, and we really need you to go back to work, and you've got the mortgage to pay, and all those kinds of things that went on there. I was like, I really want to control my own future. I want to have a business where I can decide whether or not I'm going out to work today, how much money I'm going to make, etc. And so I went from somebody reluctantly going back to work in my early 50th year to what we have today, which is a multi-million-dollar business. I have offices in, our global headquarters are in St. Catharines. I have an office in New York State and also in Sydney, Australia. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking to you about emanated from that journey, and it's part of what I also teach the students that come to our class. We started out with a 3-day staging program. It wasn't a decorating program, and I started out as a decorator. And listening to Laurie and Kelly, I realized why I hated working with all that frustration. And staging is still a very new discipline. Really, it's only built expertise and professionalism and acceptance over the last 5 to 6 years, even though it's been around for a long time. So some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today are some of the things that I've learned and some of the things I know for sure that I share with our students. The first thing that I noticed when I came to today was that Kimberly's handout there was about the equation 80-20. And so that is going to be part of what I talk about. It's simply, my goal is to shed some light and learning onto simple and effective areas of business that people tend to not pay as much attention to. I don't know whether they're just not sexy enough or whether you don't think that they work, but when you do put attention to it, it actually helps your business grow exponentially. This is a little bit about me and awards that I've won. And I think if you look at some of the achievements that I've attained in, 10 years, although 13 years, because I'm 63 now, I think the first hint that I want to give you, and we kind of touched on it with one of the earlier speakers, is when you're building your business and you're still young, you need to think of what's your exit strategy. How will you get out of this when you want to get out of it? Like the lady who wants to retire, I'm with you. I don't have an exit strategy. I started out with a real estate staging business. I was in the field and recognized that there was a big gap in what people knew, and so developed a training program. I had 5 teams of stagers that went out to work under my business name. And then I started developing the school more in depth. I now have trainers who replicate the brand and go out across the continent. And we are leveraging that now to license holders for different countries. But I don't have an exit plan unless I drop dead. And that's not something that I really want to do right now. So that's really one of the things that you need to do. I have written books, I have been on TV, but not in a show, and that really wasn't one of the things that I wanted to do. I love it when people get it, like they come to class and they follow the guides and they build a successful business and they get where they want to go. So some of the things then that we're going to be talking about are around what I think are undervalued, maybe overlooked, around vibrational intention. If you look at 80-20, 80% of the work you do is busy work. You know, you're very, very good at putting lots of time and effort into building your business, but that 20%, there's 4 components of that 20%, are around what vibrations are you putting out if you want wealth to come back to you? Kind of like a boomerang. And really, the more you deal with the energetic content that's inside of you, the more you can shift yourself from limited to limitless. We're also going to look at how to establish value for the services that you provide, some roadblocks that you may kind of run into with pricing, and then review how creating a pro forma to use as a guide for your 2014 sales will really benefit you, and winding up with 5 ways to increase your business. I've got to tell you, those last segments are math. I think it's easy math, but I got the pointer to kind of bring you along, so you will want to be taking a lot of notes, I think. All right, so are you ready for that? It's a big agenda. I know I have an hour and 15 minutes, and I keep thinking about that wine myself, but let's look at some of these scenarios. What is the definition of insanity? It really is to challenge you to think about, is what you're currently doing in your business working for you? And as Fred said, what Dr. Phil always says, is it working for you? Einstein said it was insane to keep on doing the same things over and over and expect to get a different result. Another famous person said, nothing moves until something changes. So really the message for you as you leave here tomorrow is implement. Implement, implement. Don't fall back into your old habits. The usual complaint is that you have no time. Always busy, 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 right? Well, I'm trying to think of his name now. Michael E. Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth. Have you ever read that book? Anybody read that book? Remember the circle that he asks you to draw and to fill in what part of the circle is technician skills. You know, it's not just installation, but how much time are you investing in the discipline that you have, whether it's decorating or staging? How much time are you managing your business? So T and M. And the other one is E, T-M-E-E. To me, that is time. And E is the entrepreneur. And as you get busier and busier, the entrepreneurial segment gets squished out. So coming to an event like this where you are getting time out to think about, you know, what do I want to be doing next year? It's not just hypothesis. It will, or at least it will remain a hypothesis unless you implement it. Set aside that entrepreneurial time. And the next thing that we're doing, now we titled this, you know, moving towards more profitability, and we put the $100,000 kind of sticker on there. But that, again, is a metaphor. If you've already broken that barrier and maybe the $250,000 is where you're headed, or maybe you haven't made it to that first 100,000, and maybe you're looking for the million. Whatever it is, these are the principles that can help you get to wherever your financial goals are. So so first is implement everything that you're learning. The second one is visual. Visualize. That's $100,000. We are visual people. And probably most of us have never seen $100,000. We might have seen a check for it, but we haven't actually seen it. So I'm putting it up there so you can take a mind picture of it and that you can put it into your subconscious so it's stored, so that you really can remember what it looks like. The third thing is attitude. I've got to hit this pointer thing here. Right now, the good news is that you're at 50%. You think you can, or else you wouldn't be here. You're looking for some better ways, and by tonight, you'll be up here. I will, and I can, so you just have to go out and do. That last 25% is where you have to kick in that implement. And the fourth part of that 20% we're talking about is mindset advantage. Now, with mindset advantage, I looked back, I've been a student of Wayne Dyer for a long time. And one of the things I love about what he says is abundance is not something that we acquire, it is something we tune into. So are you tuning into it? It means your business can only grow as fast as you do. Be sure that your mind is focused on creating infinite possibilities for you and for your business. And the 80-20 is something that we give credit to Mr. Pareto. His principle, he was an Italian economist actually, and he studied wealth distribution. He actually did it by observing peas in his garden, and he found that 80% of his peas came from 20% of his pods. So that 80-20 rule that was developed from that observation is that 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts, or 80% of your business is coming from 20% of your customers. So one of the things that you can do when you go back to your work is to look and see how close you are to that. Is it in fact true that the majority of your business are coming from a small group of clients, and are you paying attention to that money train? What's your customer service like to that? You know, I have a husband who's always reminding me about things that I would do when we were courting. You know, if I phoned you up and asked you to go for a walk, you didn't say, oh my God, I don't have time, I gotta do the ironing, you know? You would go. And I said to him, I know, but you were a prospect then. Now you're a customer, right? So we tend to pay more attention to our prospects. I know he doesn't like it either, but. And so look at your client satisfaction from that perspective. But for our business success, it's 20% psychology. Those 4 things that I've told you, if you're not paying attention to those 4, you're not going to get the same results. You're putting 80% effort into building your business. And without developing and exercising your mind consciousness, you're never going to get over that next hurdle. Pareto wasn't only the first person to start thinking about how do we create things, and many, many people over the centuries have talked about how we create things with our mind. We're actually, whatever we think, that is what we get. And if that is so, then every second of every minute of every day of every year, we are creating the reality that we're in. So if you have a client from hell, you invited him in. You can change that. You can change your mind about anything. And there's I think a philosophy that we've been kind of brought up with is that life happens to us, but it doesn't. It's what we do with it. And people have studied this, and I'm just kind of getting into it over the past year or so to really understand it, the infiniteness of it, and that we actually do create our day, create our client, create our experiences. And they have told us that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, 60,000. 90% of them are about the past. Think about that. Or negative, but about the past generally. So the opportunity to create infinite possibilities just revolves around how you think. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, wrote the book, 1800s. Believe it and it will happen. Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. So it all goes around what about your thinking is. Frank Lloyd Wright, famous architect. It's one of my most favorite quotes in it, thing that I often go back to if I'm excited about something in my business and nobody else can see the vision. It's the thing always happens that you really believe in. And it's the belief in the thing that makes it happen. So strengthening and not wavering from your belief is really crucial. Don't go on Facebook and ask everybody what they think. Have them weigh in on your decision. You've got to listen to your inner knowing. This is where you're going to get your inspiration. This is where you're going to get your answers. You have to believe that the answers that are coming to you in your mind are the answers that you need to pursue.